Let's go ahead and pray. We got some ground to cover yet on this on chapter 7. We'll be continuing on looking at just one section this morning. So let's go ahead and pray, and then we'll start. Lord, thank you so much just for just your just word, the information that you give us, that you have given to us is just it's amazing to see not just the past and to read what has been accomplished, Lord, but what will take place in the future as well. And pray, God, that this would be constructive and that this would be informative and that you would be glorified and acknowledged in this lesson. We thank you so much. It's in your son's name. Amen. Okay. So let's go ahead and jump right into our discourse. We are in chapter 7, back in the reign of Babylon concerning the Babylonian Empire. We are in right smack dab in the middle or at the start of Belshazzar's reign, the first year of his reign. As we have reviewed that he is ruled for about 11 years before he is conquered by Cyrus the Great, and Darius the Mede ends up becoming the co-regent at the rise of the Persian Media Empire. Okay? Belshazzar was between 550 and 539 BC. Daniel is now 63, 64 years of age, respectively. And then during that time, at about 559, Cyrus the Great begins to take his throneship, his kingship, and then slowly rise to power throughout the time of his reign. So right now we are again going back to 550 to 539 and beginning to start to see the events that occur that Daniel lays out within this particular time period. Specifically zooming into the timeline, now we are looking at Belshazzar's rule. He becomes the vice regent of Babylon in 550. And now we fast forward about a year into his reign, and Daniel is given this particular vision of by God himself. That makes up the sum of chapter 7. We had talked about the kind of this historical jump backwards and why that was important. And it seems like historically the way that this is written is to fill in gaps. So we've already seen Belshazzar's decline and his death, right? In the previous chapter, we kind of took a look at that, chapter 5, respectively, and now we're going back and kind of underscoring some of the things that occurred right before that time. That Belshazzar was died, and Darius took his place. So the last time that we had met, which was last week, we had begun to look at three distinct creatures, particularly within Daniel's dream, and giving some of the readers details concerning the creatures that are underscored in the vision that Daniel is experiencing at the time, that come out of the Great Sea. Let's go ahead and review a little bit of these details here, kind of read through these, and then we'll kind of refresh our minds with these features that these animals have. I will start at verse 1 of chapter 7. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel saw a dream and visions in his mind as he lay on his bed. Then he wrote the dream down and related the following summary of it. Daniel said, I was looking in the vision by night, and behold, four winds of heaven were stirring up the great sea. And the four great beasts were coming up from the sea, different from one another. The first one was like a lion and had wings, and had the wings of an eagle. I kept looking, and its wings were plucked, and it was lifted from the ground, and it was made to stand like a man, and a human mind was also given to it. And behold, another beast, the second one, resembling a bear, and it was raised up on one side, and there were ribs in its mouth between its teeth, and thus they said to it, Arise and devour much meat. It's the second one. After this, I kept looking, and behold, another one like a leopard, which had on its back 4 wings of a bird, and the beast also had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. Right? So we see some of the creature details here. The first one was like a lion. It had the wings like an eagle. It was plucked or pulled out and was made to stand like a man. And a human mind or understanding was given to this first beast, this first creature. The second one resembles something similar to that of a bear, and it was raised on one side, which was interesting. It had ribs in its mouth and in its teeth, right? And it was instructed to consume, to devour much meat, right? The third one was had something like a leopard, and it had 4 wings and 4 heads. These wings weren't plucked, but it was given rule and dominion, right? These are the details of these 3 creatures. Let's continue here and look at chapter 7, verse 7, where we are introduced to a 4th beast, or the 4th beast. It says this, After this, I kept looking in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrifying and extremely strong, and it had large iron teeth, and it devoured and crushed and trampled down the remainder with its feet. And it was different from all of the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. Again, interesting phrase here, interesting details. We see that these details are something unlike the other 3 beasts. These other 3 beasts don't have these details, right? Once again, Daniel gives the reader and the audience a marker, underscoring a change in the details with the dream, with the statement, after this, I kept looking in the night visions. It seems like every time he uses these phrases, we see a shift in the change of the scene. He's done this with the last 3 creatures. And so now he's focusing his attention on this one, which seems to have much greater detail. Let's look at these Aramaic phrases right quick. We've seen these before, but just to refresh our minds, let's go ahead and look at these. We have the phrase after this, atar den. Again, in this context, this phrase underscores more of the dream's detail from the previous information. We have seen this in Daniel chapter 7, verse 6, this phrase, after this. I kept looking, kazah. We've already talked about this. This tells us that Daniel was intently focusing on the details, trying to get down every detail that he could, making notations very specifically. Night visions. Again, Daniel continues to inform the reader and us this morning of the source of the detail of his intent focus, that this all occurred in the evening as he was experiencing these visions in this detail. And of course, Aru, behold, the exclamatory word to compel the person to focus on the new details he is going to give from this point forward. So all of these details are important here in this text, and Daniel kind of uses this language again to get the reader not only to focus, but to tell us the source of where this information is coming from, how he's getting this, and when he's getting this. Okay? which he underscores pretty frequently. Let's talk about some of the qualities of the fourth beast. Daniel mentions first and foremost that this beast is dreadful, or it's translated as dreadful. Dekal is the Aramaic word here. This word occurs 6 times in the scriptures, and this word dekal, or translated dreadful, only occurs in this book, the book of Daniel. The root of this word dekal is the Aramaic word zachal, which is translated either to shrink back, something like this, or to be fearful, to be in this state of fear, okay? To be terrible or to be afraid of something or someone. So this beast exudes or exhibits. It brings people fear. It is dreadful. This word is in the piel stem, that is the passive, and this type is participle passive, which underscores the quality or nature of this beast. This nature has the quality of being terrifying, dreadful, fearful. Now, what's interesting is it has the same construction as the word that is used in Daniel chapter 2 concerning Nebuchadnezzar's dream. Let's go back to Daniel chapter 2, verse 31 specifically. Daniel, remember in verse 31 here of chapter 2, begins to describe some of the qualities of the statue that Nebuchadnezzar had observed. He says, "You, O king," verse 31, "you, O king, were looking, and behold," again, the language here is very similar to that of chapter 7. "There was a single great statue. That statue, which was large and of extraordinary splendor, was standing in front of you, and its appearance was dekal." Awesome. Terrible. It exhibited fear in the sight of Nebuchadnezzar because of the size of this statue. Okay? And so, of course, some of the details. This seems to be the same thing here. Daniel begins to look at this beast and sees the menacing quality, the fearful quality of this fourth beast. Let's continue here. The word, so we see dreadful, fearful, terrifying is the next quality that Daniel mentions. Entane is the Aramaic phrase. It only appears here. It's only used once, and it's in this book. It corresponds to the Hebrew word. It's related or corresponds to the Hebrew word mathotin, I think it is, which means loins, depending on the context, side, as in like the side of a building or something like that, or mighty, strong. Okay. This speaks again to the quality and nature and character of this beast. So this beast is menacing, it is terrible, it is fearful, it is strong because of its might. And because of this, it causes great terror. Again, something that is not mentioned with the other beasts or the other creatures that arose from the Great Sea. This leads us again to the Aramaic word takif, which is strong. I think we've seen this word several other times in this text. It occurs 4 times in the scriptures, only here in the book of Daniel, and it corresponds to the Aramaic word that is, or the Aramaic word corresponds to the Hebrew word that is spelled and pronounced in the same way, Takif. Okay. Once more, this word is translated as strong or mighty. Okay, almost very similar to the word terrifying, although I believe it's the result of the fact that this creature, this beast, is strong and powerful, that it exudes all of this terror and the fear, particularly in this text here. This word strong, Takif, I mentioned that we've seen this before, although we might have not have spent too much time talking about it. This word occurs in an interesting place in the book of Daniel. Let's go back to chapter 2. Chapter 2 of the book of Daniel. Chapter 2, let's read verse 40. Now, we talked about how I'm not really convinced that this is Rome. I made a case that this is more likely the Parthian Empire that is being discussed here. If you want to know a little bit more about that, go back to chapter 2. I spent about 2 or 3 lessons outlining why I think that it's more the Parthian Empire and not Rome in view here. Let's go ahead and take a look at chapter 2, verse 40. It says, "Then there will be a fourth kingdom, as strong as iron," the key, "inasmuch as iron crushes and shatters all things, so like iron that breaks in pieces, it will crush and break all these in pieces." Let's continue reading. "In that you saw that the feet and its toes, partly of potter's clay and partly of iron, it will be a divided kingdom, but it will have in it the toughness of iron, inasmuch as you saw the iron mixed with the common clay." Verse 42. "As the toes of the feet were partly of iron and partly of pottery, so some of the kingdom will be strong, Takif, and some of it will be brittle." Okay. Oh, let me go back here. Yeah, so we see this word Takif mentioned in this text here, that it was like as iron, it will be strong, concerning the composition, is related to this particular kingdom. Let's continue here. The word iron, parzel, again, this Aramaic word occurs 20 times in the scriptures. It only occurs in the book of Daniel. It is translated iron. And again, this corresponds to the strong and resilient metal in the culture during the time of the history. Again, once more, this word is found in chapter 2, as we just read it. Let's go back and read this thing in its entirety. Chapter 2, verse 33 to 35 and 40 to 43. We'll go ahead and read this again, and then we will make some notations here. It says, I'll start at verse 31 again. "You, O king, were looking, and behold, there was a single great statue. That statue was large and of extraordinary splendor, and was standing in front of you, and its appearance was awesome. The head of its statue was made of fine gold, the breasts and its arms of silver, the belly and its thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, and its feet partly of iron and partly of clay. You continued looking until the stone was cut without hands, and it struck the statue on its feet of iron and clay and crushed them. Then the iron, the clay, The bronze, the silver, the gold were crushed all at the same time, and it became like the chaff from the summer threshing floors, and the wind carried them away, so that there was not a trace of them that was found. But the stone that struck the statue became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. Again, we see the details of the statue that Nebuchadnezzar dreamed has within it parzel, iron, right? Let's skip down to verse 40. I'm going to read this again. Okay. Actually, I'll start at verse 39. It says, after you, that is the head of gold, Belshazzar and his kingdom, Babylon, there will arise another kingdom inferior to you. Then a third kingdom of bronze, which will rule over the earth. Again, this is the Medo-Persian Empire, and we have the rise of Parthia. Okay. Verse 40. Let's read it again. Then there will be a fourth kingdom, as strong as iron, inasmuch as iron crushes and shatters all things. And so, like iron that breaks in pieces, it will crush and break all of these pieces. In that you saw that the feet and the toes, partly of potter's clay and partly of iron, it will be a divided kingdom, but it will have in it the toughness of iron, inasmuch as you saw that iron mixed with the common clay. As the toes of the feet were partly of iron and partly of clay, so some of the kingdom will be strong, and some of it will be brittle. And in that you saw the iron mixed with the common clay, they will combine with another in the seed of men, or humanity, and they will not adhere to one another, even as iron does not combine with pottery. Again, we went through all of this. This outlines, again, the major kingdoms, particularly the Gentile kingdoms. You have Babylon, Medo-Persian Empire, Greece, Parthia, and then you have the rise of the conqueror, or the kingdom of the conqueror. So iron is used to describe this particular beast, or strong, Takif, is used to outline this detail concerning this fourth beast. So we have dreadful, terrifying, strong, going back to chapter 7. And it had iron teeth, extremely strong actually, and it had iron teeth. Again, parzel. Devoured is a cow. So think about this. This Aramaic word occurs 7 times in the scriptures. Again, only occurs in the book of Daniel. It means to be devoured, to consume, to eat, right? This speaks again of the actions of the fourth beast aligned with the qualities that are just mentioned. So because this beast is dreadful, because this beast is terrifying, he is strong, mighty, and he has these iron teeth, these teeth that cannot be broken, right? He is just devouring everything without discrimination. Totally just destroying, eating everything in its path, in its wake. Again, this is a feature that the other creatures do not have. Now we have the word crushed. Dikak is the Aramaic word. This word occurs 10 times in the scriptures. It only occurs in Daniel. Again, this means to break into pieces. Now, this word is also mentioned in chapter 2 as well, right? Concerning the rise, again, of the kingdom that comes after the mixture of the pottery and clay that crushes and pulverizes the statue into pieces. This word is used, the kak. It is in the FL stem, again, which means to break into pieces, to destroy. Again, this speaks of the actions of the fourth beast. So the fourth beast consumes, he devours and crushes, pulverizes, destroys. Again, these qualities are not found with the other creatures. The other creatures are not mentioned in crushing individuals. But this one is, though. Then we get the word trampled. Rephas is the Aramaic phrase here. Twice it occurs in the scriptures. It only occurs here in Daniel. And it corresponds with the Hebrew word that is rephas, meaning to stamp or to trample down, to crush, to run over, essentially. I kind of think of those Black Friday mobs, you know what I'm saying? Like they just trample people down. You know what I'm saying? That means just a wave of individuals, right? Don't stand in front of the Tickle Me Elmo, right? Don't stand in front of the Stanley, you know, with the huge cup, man. You're going to just get ran over, right? It doesn't really happen much these days because we're internet savvy now. We do our shopping online, but in any event, to trample down is the idea. This thing destroys everything in its path. It leaves nothing. Again, this speaks to the actions that are aligned, again, with the fourth beast, again, being dreadful and strong and terrifying, menacing. It just, and, you know, he comes in and, you know, no problems. Right? Then there's this word reminder. We see this in chapter 7, remainder, in chapter 7, verse 7. It says, after this, I kept looking at the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrifying, extremely strong, and it had large iron teeth, and it devoured and crushed and trampled down the remainder with its feet. Okay. Remainder, again, is Shehar. 12 times it occurs in the scriptures. 4 times it occurs in the book of Daniel, and there's some frequency in Ezra as well. Again, this corresponds with the Hebrew word that is spelled and pronounced the same way. Again, this speaks to the impact of the actions that occur with this beast and its parts. So it consumes, it crushes, it tramples, and anything else that's left, the remainder of it, it just does away with those things. Basically, it's this: the complete destruction of everything with this beast. Okay? If Daniel can't get any more clearer with this, racking up all of these descriptions about this beast is more menacing than anything that he has ever seen concerning these creatures. This is the one that gives him the most terror. Okay? All of the other ones are weird enough, right? But this one is the one that gets his attention. Okay? Because of the way that this beast is observed by Daniel. So not only is this beast menacing and strong and mighty and terrifying, he begins to give us more detail concerning this particular beast. Okay? He mentions that that this beast has 10 horns in verse 7. It was different from all the other beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. Keren is the Aramaic phrase here for horns. It occurs 14 times in the scriptures, and it only occurs here in the book of Daniel, not Ezra or anywhere else. This corresponds again with the Hebrew word that is spelled and pronounced the same way. Okay? This word Karen, refers to a horn that an animal has, right? That an animal possesses, such as a goat or a ram or things like that. Okay? Let's continue here, verse 8. Oh, I'm sorry. Before we get to that, let's look at verse 7 for a minute. And the word different. The qualities of this particular beast is why Daniel uses the word Shana in the Aramaic that is translated different there. Again, to underscore that the character or the features of this beast is distinct from all the other beasts in Daniel's dream. He spends more time describing this beast with these attributes, these qualities, right? Dreadful, terrifying, extremely strong. Those are not found within the qualities of the other creatures. It had iron teeth. Now, one of them does have teeth, but not like this, though. He uses the word devoured, crushed, trampled, all of these, again, statements to describe the nature of this and how it is distinct or different from all these other beasts that are seen here. Okay? And of course, the horns as well. Let's keep going. Verse 8 of this chapter. It says, while I was contemplating the horns, behold, another horn, a little one, came up among them. And three of the first horns were pulled out by the roots before it. And behold, this horn possessed eyes like the eyes of a man and a mouth uttering great boasts. How weird is this? Could you imagine seeing this? I think I would be screaming at the top of my lungs if I saw this, right? But nevertheless, Daniel gives us these details here. So Daniel, in the middle of contemplating these horns, these 10 horns that he describes here in verse 7, thinking about them, like, what is this? What are these horns about? He sees another horn, a small one, right? Daniel, in the middle of pondering these 10 horns, he mentions the exclamatory word, behold, to focus intently on the next details. Again, we're getting some more details. We're zooming into this creature. Another horn, Karen, arose among them. That is among the 10 horns from Daniel chapter 7, verse 7. Okay. Let's take a look at some words here. I already mentioned a couple of them. Let's take a look at the word contemplating. Right? Daniel was contemplating these horns and what they meant. One time it occurs in the scriptures, it only occurs here in Daniel. This word corresponds to the Hebrew word sakal, meaning to understand, to perceive, to comprehend. So he's thinking about this with the intent to try to understand what this means. What are these horns about? This word is in the Hipal stem. It is intensive. So it's not like he's, this is just kind of an out of the way thought. Those look interesting. What are those, right? I mean, he's really focusing all of his mental energy to try to think about what these could be about. This Aramaic word scores again that Daniel was actively involved in thinking about what these horns were and what they meant, right? His intent was to understand what these horns meant. And while he was thinking about this, he sees another horn. Out of the 10 horns that he saw, a little one arises. This Aramaic word is zahar. It only occurs here one time in the book of Daniel. This Aramaic word corresponds to the Hebrew word, again, that is spelled the same way, zahar, which means little. Now, it can be little in terms of quality, okay? It could be little in terms of time, like I have little time left in this lesson. Or it can mean little in terms of quantity. You have a little bit of flour, a little bit of sugar, or something like that, right? Depending on the context that is used. In this case, it speaks of the nature of this horn. This horn is very small in comparison to the other horns that are among them, okay? So you got all these horns here, and then you have this little itty bitty horn, right? That grows among them. Okay? Let's continue here. He mentions that this little one came up among the 10, and the first 3, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, if you label them, the first 3 horns were pulled out by the roots. Ouch. Right? He says that Daniel mentioned that there were the first 3 horns of the 10 were pulled out by the roots before or in front of this horn, a little one. That is the literal translation. Okay? Were pulled out by the roots before it. Okay? So Daniel, for a second time, uses the exclamatory word alu, but which is translated behold, to have again the reader focus on the details. So if you notice here, we went from the micro to the macro to the micro. We talked about the details of the beast and its features as a beast. Then Daniel focuses on the beast's horns, the 10 of them, and then he focuses on this little one, this small one, right? Seems like we're just zooming in on all these details, right? He tells us some details about this particular horn, this little small one that is among these now 7 of them. Okay? There were 10, now there are 7 because 3 have been pulled out by the roots. Okay? He mentions that this horn, this little one, possesses eyes like that of a man. This phrase, arin wash, in Aramaic, highlights similarity with the preposition in blue. So this is like this symbol right here is the preposition, which underscores similarity between 2 things. Okay. In this case, Daniel wrote that the eyes that are on this horn, a little one, has eyes like a man. No other horn has this feature. Okay? It is just this one that has horns like that of a man. He also mentioned that this horn also has a mouth like that also. And this mouth speaks. That's interesting. So we got this little horn that has these eyes like that of a man and a mouth. And no other horn has these features. It's kind of interesting. And we find that Daniel hears some of the language, some of the dialogue, the verbiage of this horn. And he gives us a little bit of the quality of the nature of this little horn speech. He says that his mouth is uttering great boasts. Now, what's interesting is the word boasts is not in the Aramaic. That is added. Okay. However, the Aramaic word, it says the word boast is not in the Aramaic text. This word is interpretive with the Aramaic use of the word melal, meaning to utter or to speak. This word right here. This horn, although it is small, is great, rabab, in its speech, in its talking. Okay? So this mouth utters great boast, things like this. We will talk about what those boasts are in a later time. So, let's outline some of the features. We went through a ton of detail here in this particular text. The little short text, but there's tons of things going on here. And Daniel gives a lot of detail. First, it is dreadful, terrifying, and mighty. This is unique among these. The first creature doesn't have this. Second one doesn't have this. Third one doesn't have these features. It is not described this way. But the fourth beast is. Okay? Iron teeth is what this creature has. By way of its strength and its might and the terror that it brings, it destroys everything. It consumes everything. Daniel also mentioned that it is different from all the other creatures in the dream, as we just underscored by looking at these details, going back and forth and looking at them, right? Zooming in the lens, this creature has 10 horns, right? Despite all of the other detail that he has, this creature has 10 horns. And among the 10 horns, there is another one, a small one, right? One that is smaller than all the horns that are there. This small horn has 3 horns pulled from the roots of this beast, right? And this small horn, this little horn, has eyes like that of a man and a mouth that utters great boasts, great statements, even though it is extremely small. This fourth beast that Daniel encounters, that he sees, is the greatest and most terrifying out of all of them. As a matter of fact, this is the one that Daniel is most intrigued about because of its details. Daniel, out of all the images that Daniel has seen, again, with the most reach, the most influence, and the most destruction. According to Daniel, in the details that he addresses in this text, it seems to pale in comparison to all of the other creatures that are observed in this dream. This is the one that gets Daniel's attention the most. Oh, I wish we can go on, but we will not. We will stop here, and we will continue to examine the Daniel's dream that was given by the Lord to him for us to examine and know. Let's go ahead and pray, and then we will close out here. Lord, it is always a good thing for us to stop and look at the details, to marvel and wonder at these details, because Daniel did too. before we get to what these things are, to make sure that we go slow and extract all of the detail out of this, that we leave nothing on the cutting room floor, and that we observe these things as they are, and just think about these details and how amazing it is that you have given him these things for us to know and to think about as well. May we continue to marvel at these things and ponder them and think about them in light of your text and your word. For it's in your Son's name. Amen.